Go deeper tonight on how Donald Trump won a historic second term as president. His victory decisive. Late this afternoon, Vice President Harris telling supporters we must accept the results of this election and engage in a peaceful transition of power. Mr. Trump claiming his victory as a mandate. A big part of that plan, overhauling immigration policy. Tom Llamas is here. It was one of the defining issues, and Tom explains how his policy proposals could play out in the next administration.
We're going to have to seal up those borders.
He made immigration the centerpiece of his campaign.
We're like a garbage can for the world.
And when he's back in the White House, President-elect Trump has promised to immediately crack down with mass deportations of people in the country illegally.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out.
To do that, Trump has said he'll mobilize the military and local police. But he's offered few specific details on how it will actually work. With 11 million undocumented people living in the U.S., the process would be expensive and complicated. One report puts the price tag at an estimated $88 billion a year to hire new ICE agents, build detention camps, and carry out legal processing. Ron Vitello was acting ICE director during the first Trump administration.
I'm sure it's very expensive. It is something that's worth doing to preserve the rule of law, to order what's going on, the chaos at the southwest border, and to preserve an immigration system that has integrity in the United States. You have to set rules and you have to enforce those rules.
Trump says mass deportations are justified by a 2 centuries-old law. But some legal experts on the left say Trump's interpretation is way off.
It is not lawful to use this centuries-old statute to deport people. It was for a very specific purpose. When a foreign government invades this country, that is not what's happening with immigrants here.
Trump made immigration a major focus of his first administration with mixed success. He built part of a wall on the U.S. border with Mexico and separated families who crossed illegally. Now, in places like North Carolina, this family lives in fear they could be separated. Jenny's husband, Isabella, and Mackenzie's dad is undocumented.
I was afraid that one day they would come home and he wouldn't be here.
So he lives in the shadows. The family asks we don't show his face or share his name because they worry he could be deported.
I don't make any trouble. I just go work and coming home. My family is everything for me.
Tonight, millions of families bracing for what's next. Tom Llamas, NBC News.
And the markets today reacting in a big way to the election. All the major benchmarks hitting record highs after exit polls showed voters had been very unhappy with the state of the economy. Let's get more from Christine Rummins.
Well, I want to thank you all very much.
With Donald Trump's return to power, Wall Street likes what it sees.
This will truly be the golden age of America.
Markets hitting record highs on the promise of a Trump 2.0 economic agenda expected to include more deregulation and lower taxes.
We're going to do the best job. We're going to turn it around. It's got to be turned around. It's got to be turned around fast, and we're going to turn it around.
Exit polls show voters sour on the current economy, 68% calling it not so good or poor, and 46% of voters say their family's financial situation is worse today compared to 4 years ago. The highest that number has ever been on the NBC News exit poll.
Monster game today.
That's despite a series of stock market highs reached under the Biden administration, wage growth that has outpaced inflation for 20 months, and a historically low unemployment rate. But 22% of voters say inflation has caused a severe hardship for their families in the last year. Another 53% said a moderate hardship. Grocery prices are up 22% over the past 4 years, and rents are up an average 23%.
You know, all that stuff is going to the roof. You know, people tend to pay attention when there's less money in their bank account.
Many of Trump's economic proposals would require congressional action. He has vowed to deport millions of immigrants, a potential blow to farming and construction. He'd cut corporate taxes further and eliminate taxes on tips and Social Security. And he's promised 10% tariffs on most U.S. imports, 60% on goods from China.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff. And it's my favorite word. It needs a public relations
firm.
Economists worry that Trump's tariff threats, along with tax cuts and other spending promises, would reignite inflation, which has been falling for 2 years, and swell the deficit.
And Christy, we've got more economic news coming down the pike. We're going to learn what the Fed's going to do about interest rates.
Yeah, Lester, the Fed is expected to lower interest rates once again when it meets tomorrow. You know, and Trump inherits an economy that is robust and interest rates that are falling. The big question now, Lester, is does he respect the independence of the Fed as it tries to finish the job on lowering inflation?
All right, Christine, thanks very much. While the presidential race is over, control of Congress remains uncertain. Republicans easily flipped enough seats to take control of the Senate. But Democrats are still holding out hopes in the House. Ryan Nobles with more on what's at stake.
Tonight, votes are still being counted, but Republicans could still have a path that leads to complete control of Congress. In the Senate, the GOP took advantage of a map where Democrats were forced to defend 8 competitive seats to notch wins in West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana.
You are the people that we have to make this economy work for again.
Knocking out long-term incumbents John Tester and Sherrod Brown.
We believe if you love this country, you fight for the people who make it work. We always will.
A bright spot for Democrats, Tammy Baldwin, who won re-election in Wisconsin, and Alyssa Slotkin, who took Michigan. Right now, the size of the majority for Republicans, though, is the only open question. In the House, Democrats are clinging to hope they can retake the lower chamber. Going into election night, Republicans held a small 8-seat majority and were able to hold seats in places like Pennsylvania while losing seats in New York. Still, Republicans feel confident.
We believe in the ideas of faith and family and freedom, and we're trying to live that out every day.
More than half a dozen seats are too close to call, but Democrats would need to run the table in places like California and Arizona to take power. The final result will have a major impact on the agenda of the new incoming Trump administration. If Republicans control both the House and Senate, Trump will have a much easier time moving legislation through Congress. But the size of those majorities will play a big role as well, with Republicans already sending the message that the mandate Trump earned on election night will loom large.
People were just not happy with this administration, and the Democratic nominee obviously was a part of it.
And Ryan, the House could make history if Democrats take control.
Yeah, that's right, Lester. If the Democrats do win control of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries would be poised to become the first African-American speaker in American history. But there's a long way to go. There's still many votes that need to be counted right now, and Republicans have the advantage as we look to see who ultimately controls the House of Representatives.
All right, Ryan Nobles, thank you. One of the key issues on the ballot for millions of Americans, new laws protecting abortion access. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett is here. And Laura, it was on the ballot in 10 states.
It was, Lester. So let's start with where it actually passed, starting most specifically in Arizona. It currently has a 15-week ban, but because of this ballot measure, that will be extended to the point of fetal viability, roughly around 24 weeks. The same story in a place like Missouri. Had a near total ban, now goes to fetal viability. Very different story in Florida, Lester. Currently has a 6-week ban on abortion, and it's going to stay that way because they couldn't reach that 60% threshold. A supermajority was needed in Florida, unlike other places, so it didn't pass. Same story in South Dakota, didn't pass there. Nebraska, interesting, Lester, a different story there because there was one ballot amendment that was pro-abortion rights, another one, a counterpoint. At the end of the day, codified roughly around 12 weeks. So we're going to continue to see this patchwork when it comes to abortion rights, Lester.
All right, Laura Jarrett, thanks very much. Just 2 years into his political career, J.D. Vance now finds himself next in line to be the most powerful position in the world and outlining his vision for the future. Dasha Burns with more on his lightning-fast rise into the spotlight.
Tonight, J.D. Vance is the vice president-elect and potentially the heir apparent to the MAGA movement.
And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
At 40, Vance will be one of the youngest VPs in history.
He's turned out to be a good choice.
A choice pushed by Trump's sons, part of the campaign's strategy to appeal to young, right-leaning men.
That he's someone who understands that cycle of poverty and addiction. He broke through it. He's living the ultimate American dream.
But Vance has come under fire for some of his views, including refusing to back down on baseless comments about migrants eating pets in Springfield, Ohio.
I'm not repeating them because I invented them out of thin air. I'm repeating them because my constituents are saying these things are happening.
And these resurfaced comments from 2021.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
The Ohio native rose to national prominence after writing the bestseller Hillbilly Elegy and underwent a transformation from never Trumper.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
To Trump running mate.
I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been.
An effective communicator on the trail, Vance, the consummate attack dog, constantly doing interviews.
So let's send somebody we can trust. Let's send Donald J. Trump back to the White House.
The Senate seat he won 2 years ago will now need to be filled, while as VP, Vance has said he wants to be, quote, involved in everything. Dasha Burns, NBC News.